Alright, so we're here again, we're all here. We're going to be talking about elements that are of the game that are not actually directly related to the gameplay and the development of it as such. It's more decisions that we want to make before we start going into design decisions that may be impacted by it. So this includes stuff like audience, platform, and platform hardware, as well as interfacing, potential controller methods, and how we want to handle that, so that we can start looking at that. So obviously this is working towards the design proposal, which is going to be done in about a month's time. So yeah, these are all decisions we want to be making now, so that we can start finishing up game elements in the meantime. So yeah. So what should we start with? Should we start with audience? Because we spoke briefly about this yesterday, and we didn't reach a definitive conclusion. So that's
talk about what?
Audience.
Oh. Well, actually, Adam happened to come by the studio today, and he's like, "Who's your audience?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I know who I would market it at." But Ella seems to, and like you also have to have, like we have different philosophies for how to understand this specific game in how it should be. I guess where it should be marketed and how. Adam wanted to hear what I said, didn't really ask what Ella said, so I don't know how he would interpret that. But I had said that it should be based. It should be catered towards maybe early teens all the way to people going to like starting uni, I guess, because from Ella's research on loneliness, it would suggest that it explains that it's younger kids or younger like people who feel loneliness the most.
Wasn't it 16 to 25-year-olds?
16 to 25-year-olds. I feel like I should specify that when you said to Adam, I think you said 14 to 21-year-olds.
I didn't say anything. He's the one who said 14.
No, you said...
I didn't say numbers. I wouldn't say numbers.
You said to 21. And he then said, well, maybe lower that a little bit so that it's more refined.
I agreed with him. I don't
19.
know numbers.
But yeah, I mean, I also feel like pointing out, I don't disagree with you at all. I just want to make sure that if we have a focus towards an age group, which I know that all games need to have, I just don't want it to become so much of a focus that we
exclude other people.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't think it's necessary to... I don't think there's a lot that needs to be done to make it so that it's marketable to these people. I don't think, like, there's something very specific that we need to include that isn't already being included, or things that are being not included because of this age range. So I just don't want to get bogged down in the numbers too much, purely because I feel like in the end it's going to be a game that's fairly suited to most people.
Yeah.
Or most people who, I guess, are more interested in looking into indie games and stuff.
I agree, but I reckon our market is more leaning one way, even though it can be for anyone. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, the research for loneliness would suggest young people feel loneliness the most. They feel it way more intensely than older people, and that is apparently, as a hypothesis for explaining this by the articles Ella read, was that the only reason younger people are feeling it more is because, unlike the older generation, they haven't yet had time to get used to it and I guess suck up to the world being shit, and they're going to be lonely. And I was like, that is sad, and this game proves that it's not about getting used to it, it's about finding a way around it. And I thought, if this game is catered towards, I guess a more healthy type of living and connecting with younger people on a level that they experience apparently like frequently and the most from research again, then the game should maybe be centered around, or not centered around, like specifically geared towards them. Obviously, the research also suggested that old people feel this as well, which is unusual because they should have gotten used to it according to that one theory, but no. But yeah, no, old people don't play games, and I also think the reason so maybe they'd need a different like medium or other way to, get that for themselves. But I think we were thinking how young we could actually go, but then Dean and Ella pointed out younger people, if you go too young, then people don't actually understand the themes and don't know how to take away what the game's meaning actually was.
I think one of my main problems was that younger people tend to mostly play what is popular. They won't seek out new, more, I guess, different experiences like this is designed to be. Yeah, they won't necessarily seek out indie games unless all their friends are talking about it. It's more of a collective kind of ideal than actually seeking out new experiences. I think aggressively targeting anyone is a problem, but aggressively targeting children specifically would be a problem because they wouldn't be the people who would be seeking out the game in the first place.
And considering we don't exactly have a marketing department that can specifically target the grounds in which children would frequent, such as TV, and obviously
we're not going to have
easy
ads
access
on the playground,
internet.
are we?
Not that anyone should really, I think, have a marketing department. I mean, other than marketing, I mean marketing for a specific audience. I think we even had a discussion. We didn't. I asked James what his opinion on having an audience was. I didn't really say what it was about, but he was like, it's important, definitely, but because everyone's so different, if you get a focus group, they'll be like, yeah, I do like it, but this, and everyone will have their own take on it. So it's best to create the right vision and give it to the people it applies to, then actually continuously change it and make it so that it works for everyone, because that's not possible.
Yeah,
and so it's a waste of time to have focus groups.
Joel at Us Two Games was talking about it, I think, as the designer. He was saying about focus testing with level design and finding out that the people they were testing with didn't actually like puzzle games, and they were testing puzzle games with them, and they're like, oh, okay,
time.
I would take away the things they're saying about user interface and user experience, but we won't take take out the things they said about level design because it's not for them.
I mean, things will appeal to some people and think some things won't. I mean, you can't make a game for everyone, and that was another thing that they said. And I personally hate marketing towards age groups because age groups is a stupid way of marketing to games and anything, in fact, because people are different, and you've got some 10-year-olds that have the maturity of a 7-year-old, and you've got some 10-year-olds that have the maturity of a 15-year-old.
Well, let's look at any toy advert. It's going to be when you see things advertised towards 8-year-old boys and things for 10-year-old girls. It's people have different personalities, right, and are into different things.
Yeah, Lego's a good example. I was maybe 16, I was buying Lego. I was like, Lego's cool.
But
buy Lego.
It's like Minecraft. Children enjoy that, and children get something out of that, and I get something out of that, and I'm 20.
I play Animal Crossing. That's my go-to. I play Animal Crossing, and I love it, and it's great. And people are like, oh, this kid's game. It's I'm just chilled as hell. If I want to relax, I'll just do some fishing. Animal Crossing.
So I think it's exceedingly arbitrary. Marketing to age groups, which is why we had a quick discussion yesterday about looking at actually what our experience brings to people and marketing towards people that are looking for that. So less of an age group and less of a this age based on research from our first iteration point that we started from. Because the research that you started from is not the game that we're making now. It's changed so much and it's undergone so many changes, and yes, it's still about the same thing, but it's a different light, it's a different take, it's a different way of approaching it. It's we've got a vision, we've got a method of focus as such. So what we want to look at is what our game brings, and as we've spoken, it's about this uplifting experience that is about changing a perspective, like you said, Bernie. It's about saying that, like, actually, it's not just coming to terms with the loneliness. It's about finding a way around it and actually overcoming it and becoming better for it. It's a positive experience, and thus we should be looking to market for people that are looking for a positive experience.
Yeah, well, because I think the thing is, we're not making. We've said it before. We're not making a serious game in quotation marks. We're not making something that's like we're combating serious issues here. We're making a game. It's got its focus and its uplifting narrative, and it's going to have particular aesthetics that will be quite cute and stuff. You know, it's going to be in such a way, but this isn't something where we're going to shove it in these people's faces because they're going to be most affected by it. It's out there, and here's what it does. Here's the experience we're going for, right? That's the impression that I get.
Exactly. And yeah, I think different people will take away different things. Like there are issues and things in this game that we're tackling that are deep and are important and are like serious as such. We've got a lot of, like, with our new narrative, we've got a lot of loss and a lot of confidence that we're overcoming and seeking to be different. These are things that people struggle with, like, genuinely, and those are important and those impact people's lives, and those aren't to be diminished by saying this is just a piss take of that, and that's not what our game is.
Because, like, when I play Eco, I'm like, you know, I'm not going, I want to play a game that's all about, companionship. I'm like, I want to play a good game that says its thing and has its experience, and I enjoy it, and, you know, and then I take away what I take away, because Eco is not advertised as, this is for people who need to learn about companionship. It's like, here's a game, play it, and get out what you can from it.
Exactly.
Because, like, the game is really just about the representation of music, using, like, realistic stories deriving stories from actual, like, situations people are in. It's just more of a, I guess it's a placeholder. It's, I guess, what's the word? It's like you're just using it to, like, illustrate the musical idea. It's not actually supposed to be for people to get better with. It's meant to be like, this is the good in music.
Because it's like, it's a context for the, like, I guess, the universal language of sound and music, and yeah, you know, because it's the roots of where the project came from. But yeah, that doesn't mean we have to tailor it for the people that, I guess, influenced it. That's the thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of important things here, and that's what gives it meaning, and what gives it depth for us as creators, and that every game needs something like that. It needs some meaning behind it, but there's a difference between having a meaning behind it and a soul to a game, and having something that you're pushing in people's faces and telling this is how you must feel, and this is this is a serious thing that you need to feel like this, otherwise you're a bad person.
Or even just, we're seeking to have this immediate effect on these people. Like, because, you know, Games for Change exist, serious games exist, and they present ideas and challenge, like, like, perspectives and things. And, like, there's a place for that. But yeah, you know, we're making a game.
Yeah, we're making a game.
And I hope people enjoy it.
There's going to be something for lots of people, and I personally hope that different people can take away something different from it, because I think it's got a lot of depth to it. With our new structures we've got in place, there's a lot of different elements, a lot of hidden narratives, a lot of hidden meanings in it. That is important, and that holds something for everybody, because some people will uncover things and find something in there, be that our final scene, or whether they just really like the big man with the triangle, you know. It's like, it holds something for everybody.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, who said that? Nobody.
I mean, there's a lot to be spoken about. What do you mean hidden meanings? Do you mean subtext, or do you mean there's something about the game that needs more?
Because we're using a game that doesn't have, in its current state, any dialogue. And when you do that, some things will always be omitted, because you can't always explain everything in a way that is going to perfectly illustrate your story. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I quite like it when games work like that. But that means that some things will be hidden and will require people to think about it and actually experience a scenario, and they'll have to go away and they'll have to think, oh, so these are things that I know. This is the ambience and feel that I get. This is the setting. These are the characters. And what does it make me feel?
Like, I've had discussions with you, Bernie, about Inside and what I took away from it, and then when I researched afterwards what other people took away from it, and you were saying about what you took away from it, and saying, oh, but what about this and this? Because, the game features no dialogue apart from the word inside, and it's like, what you get is what you get. But
I mean, it upsets me to not have things explained to me, but that's fine. That's just me.
Yeah, because I'm a fan of when things aren't like when things can be inferred.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't think the game does that. Inside, I'm fascinated by the world. It doesn't feel real. It feels just not like our world, even though there's things from our world, like there's old cassette players, whatever they're called. I don't know what they are. They're just super old, so I don't really know.
Sure.
But VCR.
Yeah, there's VCRs, but like think of it. I don't know if it's an even less like technologically advanced version, but like it's a tool machine, like the size of a person and wider than a person that plays cassettes. And I don't quite know what the machines are. Anyway, It was just I don't know what the world is, and I wouldn't think much of it. I had a question. Maybe you guys can keep talking, because I know it take a while to remember things.
We should try and come up with a definitive answer for this, obviously.
Audience?
Yeah. Because obviously it will be useful for not so much guiding a direction, but understanding where we're looking to go with it.
Put that on silent.
What is it?
I just wanted to ask, you'd said the game didn't feature any dialogue. This isn't something that I know about. I thought that the community that you originate from and leave was a community which you could make noises at, and they'd make noises back at you, but in text boxes or in somewhere you would actually know what they were saying to you, because you're part of the same family of instruments.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about this. I think this was probably our biggest conundrum when we were actually developing the narrative structure of if you can understand some people and you can't others, how we're going to convey this. And after a lot of thought, we realised that we don't think it really adds a lot, I think.
What, to have words?
Basically, we were thinking that because it is in itself a little bit abstract in the way that it's going to be conveyed, because most of it is not going to have words as well, it feels a bit jarring to have like a text box with words at you right at the beginning, and then for the rest of the game have nothing, because it almost feels like it's taking you out of the experience with a text box, and then it's putting you back in this state of, well, there's no more text boxes. And it feels like, I feel like it'll feel like there's something missing for the rest of the game.
I happen to disagree.
Unless you're going to have text boxes with a load of mishmashed letters that don't mean anything to the character later on. But then we weren't sure if we wanted it to be super literal or not.
I feel like a sense of understanding, because there is the thing of music is a universal language, and if we want this game to be universal in and of itself, to be able to be understood by anyone, then we wouldn't want to be, I guess, using cultural references, because verbal language is a cultural reference, that relies on, because the way we've spoken about how English has sentence structures that differ from other things, and you design something for English that it won't necessarily translate properly into other languages. But that's one thing. If you were to just convey the idea that people in the same community can understand each other, if whenever you strum your instrument during traversal, like when you're in the string village, you like two other people near you will just also
back, yeah.
strum theirs at the exact same time for a harmony. Bam! Like
That's one. I mean,
And
yeah,
if it's clear that
Okay.
both of you are responding
yeah,
to each other, I
and
think
it's
that's
cohesive.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
what you need. And also, like, what was it? Like when you introduce a feature at the beginning of the game, the way that a structure will work, especially in games of when you're introducing interaction, is you are gearing the player up to understand the features so they can utilize it later on. Because that's why you have tutorials at the beginning of the game, so players understand the world, they understand the premise, the rules, and all of that. If you introduce something and then never use it again, that is possibly one of the worst design decisions you can make.
I think you're wrong.
I think I'm not, but sure, go ahead and try and convince me.
Okay.
Because this happens to be a pretty unique situation, because the point is you can communicate, but when you find someone you are unable to communicate with, how do you? In order to create a situation where you're able to communicate and feel like... Sorry, do you want to interrupt?
No, I'm just saying I want to say something as soon as you're done.
yeah. We spoke about the gesture thing to say that you. Yeah, sure. Sorry, continue.
I feel like there needs to be some sort of, I don't know what to call it, friction in not being in, like some sort of frustration in not being able to communicate in order to feel you have like actually achieved some sort of milestone in figuring out another way to communicate which works. Because like I feel like having no problems from the beginning of the story to be resolved, I mean communication wise with the being able to communicate with music, I feel like to give music the appreciation it deserves for being able to be understood by everyone, you need to show that what would happen without it first, which is why I thought including a text box, it doesn't have to be a text box, but in this example let's say it was a text box with words that you can understand, and then taking it away and then everyone's text box is a thing that can't be understood. I think that adds meaning to the music, even though it's not a feature that can be used, like, I guess, to tell and communicate stories. But I feel like the story is being told in the lack of being able to communicate and then finding the other way to communicate.
I don't think it adds anything. I think if you're introducing a universal medium and then you're also simultaneously introducing a medium that's not universal, you have a disconnect there.
That's
and
the
you've
point.
simply introduced a design issue for yourself. So,
Yeah, but the point is to illustrate it's not you can't do it this way, but here's the universal way you could do it.
if you're introducing a universal way which is obvious, then what's the point?
Because it feels like... Because it doesn't feel... Because we're trying to illustrate a solution to communication. And if there is nothing to be resolved, how can you think that being able to play music is a way to do it?
Sorry, not Dean. Ella, go.
Okay.
Close.
No, I think we've got an issue with doing that, because by giving them text boxes at the beginning, you're giving them, okay, this is the easy way to communicate, and this is the most effective way to communicate. And sure, that is true. But then later, even after you've you've played the music with this other character, you're not going to be speaking the same language, and so you're not going to have text boxes that you can understand. Which means that even after playing music with them, you don't get this idea of...
I don't know what that means. Oh, no, thank you.
I'm fine.
Okay.
You don't get that feeling of, wow, I've accomplished this thing of communicating with this person. It's more like, I've just played music with this person, and yeah, okay, things seem to be happy now, but I don't really know why, because there's no communication in a sense that you've just witnessed in form of text box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're taking away
Like-
from the universal medium if you introduce another method.
Exactly, a more efficient, way more efficient method. If it was just slightly more efficient, then yeah, sure, you'd still have that. Oh, okay, well, we are still communicating. It may not be quite as good, but this is clearly a form of communication. Whereas the contrast between playing music with someone and how much you can actually communicate via that, as opposed to just literally spelling it out for you exactly what the person's trying to communicate. There's a big difference between the two, and the player will notice that and remember that big difference throughout the whole game, and by the end they'll be like, okay, so I sort of got an idea of what happened later, but quite frankly the bit I understood 100% the most was everything that happened right at the beginning of the game. And that's not the important bit. You don't want them to remember just the beginning of the game, because that's just the starting point, and hardly any of it, it's just setting it up for the rest. And if you forget all the bit in between, then it's like, what was the point? That was the whole journey.
In that case, we happen to disagree on this, because I would want them to remember how it felt to have an easy way to communicate, and then to be stripped of it.
But then you'll miss that for the rest of the game, and you won't really...
But the thing is, because you can't use that, and then you found a way around it, I thought that was the point, to figure out, to put in the effort for someone who you could not understand otherwise, without taking into account the way they perceive things to be, like, understandable to them. I thought that would be what you would want. But if you're trying to show that it's actually, if all you're trying to do is, like, this is a universal way to communicate, not actually this is a way to communicate in case you couldn't otherwise, then I agree. If it's just meant to represent this as universal communication.
Do you think that if you were to have text boxes...
I'm not saying text boxes. I think that's a bad idea. You had a good point when you said it's already cultural bias, like to have like words in it,
so
like real language in it.
What would you suggest?
I don't have a suggestion. I was just pointing out. I was just illustrating a problem I had with not having a certain like context before developing on it. I feel like I've just... I mean, I didn't feel like I've been thrown into, like, this surreal world, which obviously it is. It's not real. But, like, I thought... No, I don't know what I'd suggest. You had a good example. Like, you said some... I think... I can't remember who said it, but they were at this table just now when they did it, when they said it. You said that maybe at your own community, when you play with your string instrument, they would... do it back equally as well, and it just works.
Yeah, because if you were thinking of an alternative, because that would be my like what I'd throw forwards idea-wise. But if you were to go with an alternative one, do you think that it would be like that button is always there to be interacting with people, but it just doesn't do anything for most people? Because if that were the case, then people would probably keep trying to use it throughout the game to go, what if this person can speak to me? What if this person can speak? Because I know that's the thing in, the Hollow Knight. You get a thing halfway through the game, that means you can do a thing, and I try it out on pretty much, well, only after I found out about it, because I didn't originally know about it. Sam said, hey, this is a thing, and I was like, that's a thing. But, and then after that, I was just trying it on literally everything, which was taking away a bit from the fun I was having before. Like, it was a cool thing to do, but it was drawing away from the original focus. So, like, I guess it's a case of there will be people who will want to exhaust this thing. Like in Metroid Prime, you have a menu, an interface that's designed around scanning items, so you get their entries in basically a wiki of like descriptions, and I would try scanning everything just to make sure that I've got them.
Yeah.
So, like, I think, it's just...
Maybe a takeaway, probably.
Yeah,
I mean, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I once played on Ella's Wii U, I don't know, Yoshi's...
Woolly World.
Yeah, Woolly fucking World. And, like...
Language.
I was grinding my way into walls, jumping into walls, and making sure I touched every inch of the wall, because secret walls, and it's like, I can't move away from the spot, and I would die over and over again, jumping down into death pits, whilst grinding down the side of the wall to make sure I couldn't miss anything.
I'm going to say now, I haven't played Yoshi's Woolly World, but I have played other Nintendo games and other platformers with hidden walls, and generally you can feel when something's going to be a hidden wall. You can go.
Okay.
I can see that looks suspicious because like in Metroid there are a bunch of hidden bits and it's like somewhere in this room there's going to be, because there isn't anything in this room, therefore that one of these walls has to be the Shovel Knight. Like the walls look different, they have a different palette, and you just hit them and it goes away. Castlevania, you can go, it feels about right, like that looks like there should be a hidden thing, I'm going to hit it and there's some chicken in the wall.
No, I know what you mean. It should look right. Like, I know I constantly find...
That's how you get your health back in Castlevania. You hit the wall and you get your full chicken dinner, and that's it.
Win-win chicken dinner, okay.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean. In Zelda, I can find secret walls because they're like, well, obvious, they're like,
and texture.
And like in this game, it took away from all the themes and it made it a really frustrating, long-winded game. But yeah, I know what you mean about it feeling different. In that case, maybe you can't use it on everyone. Maybe we could figure out that way where there's something.
If you can't use it on everyone, then people would forget about it. So what I'm saying is having a consistent means of interaction throughout would mean that people can see the different ways that interacts with people, rather than seeing the different ways they're allowed to interact with people, because it would feel arbitrary. That's the thing.
Well, what if you could use it on everyone? Let's say you tried to pluck your instrument towards a person. Does every person own an instrument? Maybe
Yes.
there can be... Okay, so it can't be like many people have an instrument, some don't, and so you wouldn't...
I think the idea is that everyone has an instrument, because that... From what we had a discussion with Adam the other day, where he was suggesting maybe we just have... That is the language, is... the playing of music. Like, they don't communicate with words at all. It's just playing music to each other, and that is, it. But, I was going to say something. Yeah, about the text boxes, because I know you don't want to do that, or you sort of would... I don't know. The only way I would consider that to be potentially a thing that we could include in any sense is if, I think I've said this before anyway, is if as you're playing to or with these people from an area where, there's a miscommunication thing happening, I feel like the only way you could use that is if as you're playing with them, maybe the gibberish text box that's down below, like, saying what they were trying to tell you, sort of slowly becomes ungibberished, turns into English, like letter by letter as you play. And then as you've finished playing the song, you see the finalised sentence, you stop playing, you try and talk to them again, and they're speaking gibberish again. I feel like that's the only way it would convey that still. But then you've still got exactly that. But that at least would still convey the message, whilst also allowing us to use text boxes at the beginning constantly.
I guess you could just continuously change the language, depending on where the game... If we had multiple languages, obviously we wouldn't be in charge of that. If we actually made the game, we'd have people doing that.
But anyway, that was just a suggestion that could be a way of incorporating it, but at this point, as we were discussing the other day, as of now, we aren't having speech at like a literal, like text boxes or text in any way in the game.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm not saying we should, and I agree that we shouldn't have real words or real or like text that is actually of any understandable language. I'm just trying to figure out how to represent that, how to set up to have I want to feel like we found a way to communicate through music, is all I mean. And text box is, I guess, a placeholder for that idea, but it doesn't have to be there. It does still work without it, but I can appreciate more, and it tells you, but I mean, it spells it out to you, music does it, and this other thing wasn't working.
Anyway, I feel like this was all a big tangent, and
It
we
was.
were
Yes,
going
we were talking about
somewhere.
audience.
Yeah.
So we'll try and answer these core questions, and if we have any time left, we can come back to these things. Okay. Okie dokie. So we didn't get a definitive answer on the audience front, other than the fact of we understand an age group that matches with loneliness the most, and we understand the experience we want to give to players. So
Well, Adam agreed, just so you know. He didn't agree all the way up to, like, 21-year-olds at uni with me, but he said, so 14 to 19, I reckon, is your age group, is what he said, which I didn't disagree with. It's the people who... I mean, that's the time where you're beginning to understand how to, I guess, deal with it by thinking a bit more critically about your life.
yeah, I think it's the possibly the time in your life where you can develop a higher construct of social interaction,
Yeah.
which is obviously you would understand
I mean,
loneliness to a higher extent.
and it'll especially be useful for anyone when they move out of, like, I mean, I assume this game will be relevant to anyone who is, like, the second they join a secondary school and then leave again to go to uni, because, like, that cutting off ties with all the people you knew constantly makes it quite apparent you want to figure out how to maintain your relationships, because that's important to people. So, yeah, I agree with Adam, and yeah, I think that's our main audience that would, like, see it the most, but
Yeah.
anyone can really see it with age.
Well, if we have to go for an age group, then I think that's probably the best bet. But I think we can also, yeah, as we say, make note of what we're
Yeah.
giving and what the experience is,
Yeah.
and then try and market it in a way that is as open as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think loneliness is also highly related to, like, exclusion, and if we develop a game that excludes markets, then we aren't doing the job properly, really, aren't we?
Yeah, it's true.
So, yeah. Okay, well, if we leave it there for now, and then we
Yeah.
can iterate on that potentially in the future
Yeah.
to get a definitive answer, but I think that pulls us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea for a target audience age-wise. I don't think we need to really think too much on the age thing.
Don't we? I think we're constrained to that
No.
format for our, like, thoughts to be considered legitimate.
All I'm saying is I don't think we need to mess around with it. I think that's a pretty good idea of where we want to go. It's just now, as long as we can convey, like you say, the experience that we're really aiming to provide, then that's also an important thing to consider when we're talking target audience. But yeah. No, I'm saying 14 to 19-year-olds, good. We don't need to keep thinking too much about that in terms of finding
Yeah.
specifics or anything.
I don't think there's
that's
any
fine.
point in overthinking it, because the chance,
Yeah.
like, people will buy it if they want to buy it, or people will play if they want to play it. Like, if you're 21 and it says age group on the box, they're not going to go, oh well, I guess I'm not going to play it because it doesn't say my age group, you know. Like, so at the end of the day, you can only cater so much.
I know.
Right. Let's move on,
Yep.
because that took half an hour. So, the next biggest consideration, and this is quite a big one, is platform. And when I say platform, I mean hardware platform. So, the be that console or the system in which people will play it on. So, yeah, this is something I believe we can decide at this point, because we have a pretty rough idea about how things are going to work so far. We've got a lot of finessing to do, obviously, but we know kind of the experience we want to deliver and how we can best give that. So catering to a platform now would probably be a good idea. So
Sounds good.
we have had a short discussion yesterday about it, and I think the general consensus is that we were leaning more towards a console front.
Yeah, well, because I think you had the initial proposal of the Switch, Ella said that she was thinking the same thing, kind of, I believe. And yeah, because I think, because what I said, because I agree, the Switch is generally a good platform for not only indie games but fresher experiences and more positive things, and also single player things, because a handheld is a good place to put a single player experience, because you can just pick it up and play it when you're not doing stuff with other people, you know. So I think it makes sense. And yeah, you know, people like numerous indie devs, at least around the time of the Switch's launch, when it wasn't cluttered on the storefront, were saying about how much better their games were selling on the Switch. But yeah, you know. Then George, you also said PS4 alongside that, and yeah, I think and I said, you know, with PC. Anything you generally develop for console, you can just go, here's the PC version as well.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, we've got controller support. Bam, there's your PC version.
Can you connect like audio devices into the Switch?
What do you mean? Oh, what, as in MIDI controllers?
Headphones.
Headphones, earphones.
Yeah, of course. It's got a headphone jack on the top.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah,
So
that
obviously,
would be important.
talking about the hardware is going to be important. I don't know actually a huge amount about the Switch.
Same.
So
Great.
I did know about it, but I've forgotten most of it.
There is a consideration that I remembered earlier, because Bernie, I was speaking to you about. Well, you said there's the possibility of using the triggers, right, for input. The Switch has digital triggers, which means you can't have analog input. So that would be a consideration for controls. Would be relying on all digital input aside from the analog sticks.
Oh, that's going to be really sad, because even the analog sticks, they have like the they're not smooth, they're smoothly curved. They
That's
have
smooth.
like, are they?
That's smooth, yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I guess I'm misremembering it.
They're just quite small, which means that for shooters you don't have a lot of wiggle room to make precise movements. You've got the same sensitivity, but they're just smaller, so it's harder to make tiny adjustments.
Yeah.
Is it really smooth?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, you have yours over there. Can I go
I do.
check? Because I remember it. I
What-
feel like there's a
Can
problem
go
with
for
it.
it.
Maybe I'm
what do
describing
you
it
mean
wrong.
by smooth?
I mean, the joystick. I thought it was like...
There are no gates or anything. There's, I believe there might be a slight click when you turn it, but I think that's just because mine's used now.
Your one's already clicking.
I don't know
even
if
though
the
it's new.
microphone's going to pick you up from over there.
Yeah.
No, it's picking them up. At least. I think.
Okay.
Trying to be a bit loud, but right.
He's noisy.
It's completely smooth.
Oh, you're right. What was I
There are no
thinking
gates.
about?
You think of the GameCube controller, which has a
Yeah, I am thinking about that
gate.
thing.
And that thing's, octagonal gates are useful for fighting games and stuff. But yeah.
Is your one different?
No.
Do you know?
It's not different at
No.
all.
Ella's one's different because it doesn't work properly.
It's fixed now.
It's fixed. Wait, any
Well,
reason?
I got a new one.
Oh, really?
I had to buy a new Joy-Con. It's really sad.
That's a lot of money. Right?
Yeah, I know. But I only got
Yeah.
one. I didn't get
I
like
don't think
a
I've ever
set.
picked up a Switch
That's
just that bad.
It's also, for comfort, because some people are more comfortable this way.
Ah, shit, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, you
That is
can
a
do
thing.
that. And there's also a little
And they both-
controller you can slot that into.
Yeah,
So then it
Right.
becomes a handheld thing,
yeah.
which is nice.
The
Yeah, because
Joy-Con
there's like a
direct.
controller, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can,
like,
put one-
sorry, not handheld. Like this,
Yeah.
goes into the TV and you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
you can just prop it up.
yeah, I know you Switches have a huge amount of modularity. I've clicked the buttons. Have I done something?
Oh, they're trying to connect, but it's not going to do anything. It's cool. Because syncing up is pressing the two bumpers at the same
Yeah,
time,
okay.
or turning it this way and going bonk, because it
Bonk.
works like that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because it's identical on both sides, like that.
Yeah.
So 2 players. But yeah. you
Okay.
know,
Okay.
that's the
Wow.
Switch.
Very nice.
I'll have to play around with the Switch, because, I'll have to see how it
We
works.
also-
It doesn't have to be
It
that.
would
As you
also
can
be
think
ideal
about
if we could get our one here working again. Our
Yeah.
studio one. So we can have to get James to underclock it.
But yeah, Switch is great for a number of reasons. Also, the screen is perfect for colourful games because it's a very colourful screen.
Yeah, okay.
So bear that in mind.
My consideration with PS4 was it's going to be not too difficult, I think, if we get it to work on Switch, to move over, especially hardware-wise, because the hardware is generally
because as long as we're not tailoring things to gyro, we can go to PS4 and to PC very easily. So whether we're on Unity or Unreal, we have Switch support. Mm-hmm. So
we do.
Yeah, like both things, we just export a different build, go bam, there you go, make the necessary changes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask. I know you gave proof already, but I wanted you to be more specific. That you said that single-player games sell better on the Switch, and so do indie games.
Not single player. I didn't say single-player games sell. I'd say single-player games are great for handhelds in theory.
Okay.
But indie games. Numerous indie devs have come out and gone, we've sold way more as soon as we hit the Switch than we did on the PS4 and the PC combined even. That was around the Switch's launch when the storefront wasn't cluttered.
Yeah.
That sounds like it doesn't sound like the reason. I'm just wondering whether it would happen. As an example, if it would happen to us
on their on the eShop, they had philosophy where because in Japan there's a massive thing against indie games, like in at least the consumer market. I believe this is what I read, where a lot of Japanese consumers will be like, I don't want to play an indie game, I want to play, a big budget game. Even though their big budget games are often, in quotation marks, AA. I hate that term, but that's the thing. Nintendo wanted, in order to give them a better chance of selling the indie games, they wanted their storefront to have completely no difference between how they market bigger releases and smaller releases, which is great. That's how it should be, really.
Also, in my opinion, as somebody outside of the kind of Switch community, I see people that buy Switches as somebody that are investing a lot of money into a new experience, something that they're not really sure on yet, because people bought the Switch and it wasn't really confirmed whether it was going to be good or not at that point. I know Nintendo has a track record for occasionally making hardware mistakes.
They've made some good hardware in their time.
Switches, they have,
but they have absolutely made mistakes.
I agree. I agree. I think the Switch is very good, but I see people that are looking to hey, let's see what's going on here. Let's try out a new market. Let's try and do something new. And obviously, building an indie game that's working on new ideas and new themes and that kind of thing fits very well into a market that is got people in that field that are looking to do that.
I think as well there is a subculture on the Switch for double dipping. People will have bought a thing on PC or PS4 already, and then the Switch version gets announced. They go, I'm getting on Switch as well.
I want a gaming experience.
It's a handheld as well. You've got your thing on the go. I was waiting to get the Switch version of Axiom Verge, even though I think I paid slightly more for it than on the Steam sales, because it was I want to play it on my handheld with the fixed screen, and I want Hyper Light Drifter I'm going to buy again, absolutely, but next time it's on sale, because money.
I think that's an unfair example, because it comes with more content.
Well, this is the thing, even before it had more content I was I hope this game gets to Switch because I want to buy it again, because it's Hyper Light Drifter, but that's probably an unfair example, but I was waiting for the Switch version of Nidhogg 2, because they said, it's coming to Switch. I was like, well, Nidhogg is made for the Switch because it comes with 2-player support combined and it's on the go, so I can just go, hey, want to play some Nidhogg?
I think it's also quite safe to say that the Switch, you can tell from the way it's made.
Yeah.
It's not geared for people who are playing super intense combat games, shooters, So automatically you've got this console which doesn't seem quite so serious in competitive gaming wise. Yeah. It's a lot of the games are geared to kids.
The main design of the Switch has red and blue control.
Yeah, it's sort of it's geared to it feels more like it's geared to everyone.
Yeah.
And so I think you're more likely to find people who want to play something that's maybe not so action driven and whatever. I think they're going to be more likely to play the Switch than maybe, the other platforms that have
Yeah.
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I think it suits the game that we're making a lot better than the other platforms.
Yeah.
Well,
other than maybe PC, but then I feel like then that's a bit more of a...
PC is like, if you want to buy a game, feel free to get it on PC, because you can shove a thing on PC and people will get it. It's just, but I think, because there's one thing, if I open up the PlayStation Store on my PS4, like, I'm going to be greeted with a big dumb picture of Call of Duty. When I open up the Switch eShop, and there's an indies section, I open the featured bit, and it's like indie game, like game of the day, and there's going to be an indie game. And
I've noticed it has like little things saying like, 9 new indie games you might want to try, and it's like, oh, cool. Like recently, like on my little news thing when you first turn it on, it was like talking about how Abzu's now available, and I'm like,
it's like bam, right there.
No, I think it's genuinely like,
it's cool
from the perspective of somebody that doesn't have a Switch. So I'd be probably the more negative end of it. I think it's a really good idea. I genuinely do. I think it would suit the console well. I think it suits the market well. I think it suits the device generally as a handheld system. And just generally the markets in general that you can find on there. So, I mean, from that perspective, also, like, it's probably on the lower hardware end, which means that if we're designing for that, it'll work on everything else without problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because you see games that are designed for other systems that when they're ported over, it's like, oh, that does not run well. Like, I see Overcooked 1 and 2, like even in their trailer footage, I could see it dropping a ton of frames, and I'm like,
where's it meant to play? Where's it meant to play?
Well, because that's the thing. Overcooked 1 is designed predominantly as a PC thing, I'm pretty sure. And so, like, you can throw any hardware at it. You've got no hardware target. But then Overcooked 2 came out, was being developed after Overcooked 1 hit the Switch, I'm pretty sure, and was a massive success on that. And it's like, why did you not think about this? Because I can see in the trailers, Overcooked 2 runs just as bad, if not worse. And it's like, consider it, man. Consider it's important. But anyway, a lot of people don't care about that stuff anyway, but I do, and I think we spoke about it as well. When it's a game about feeling and feelings,
you want it to feel like
60.
it plays.
I think that's going to be a key element. Like, we're speaking about a game that feels like it wants to flow. It's related to music. It's synchronization. It's like in timing. It's got to be really clean. And in our current market with the current consumers, we're not going to get that with 30.
No,
not realistically.
What else was on the list? Because I think we've sort of decided on
interfacing controller. I also thought it might be an idea to talk about possible engines. Okay, that's not as important.
Actually, I have one more question.
Sure.
So you said games suddenly sold better
on the Switch. Indie games,
according to developers. Indie games. But you said from its history, it's because
this was when the Switch came out, but indie developers were actively saying about this stuff. I don't know, they could still be, but that's when I was hearing it a lot, because since then, Nintendo changed their approach to how many games they want on the storefront. Because at the beginning, they went, we only want to show off these games, and now one of their advertising campaigns is over 1,000 games.
In that
because
case,
they're throwing basically everything at it, which is a problem.
In that case, doesn't it? I mean, the conclusion that it's because the Switch represents some sort of indie approach, I feel like is a correlation. But I feel like there's another correlation that he just said, which is a new approach. And it's not just AA games, whatever you want to call them. It's also flooding it with everything that's like good, like a potential like game. So it's like, if people have the ability to buy more games, especially people who wouldn't have before, like you said in Japan, if suddenly they have the option to buy more, then it's like it makes sense that suddenly there's more customers trying to buy games.
No, because the increase of sales was before Nintendo changed its approach. This was at the start when they were very select. Like, they turned down N++, which is now on the Switch, but it's a very popular platforming game that's been around for a long time. Like N came out probably maybe a decade ago or so, maybe more than that, on the PC, and N++ was a massively well received platformer, and Switch turned it down. Like Nintendo turned it down to hit their storefront initially because they said that's not what we're looking for. Probably because it's a stickman. You play as a stickman, and like even though it's fantastic and looks super stylish, like it was turned down, and now it made it on there, and everything's making it on there. You saw like cosplaying sexy girls is like with really bad English.
I mean, you should see some of the descriptions of the games. Like, it feels like someone's just typed it up really quickly and then just hit enter, and it's like, that's not that's been badly written. But you know, I think they just want to get as much content on as possible.
Yeah.
It feels almost like they're trying to, you know, get back in the game after the fact that for so long they just didn't advertise anything other than these are Nintendo games.
Yeah.
These are the things you can play.
Get that third-party support.
Yeah, they've realised that, you know, there's other platforms that have got so many more.
Yeah.
Like a massive variety of games.
I think even like with the influx of games, it's worth mentioning that Nintendo are still a curated storefront where they have editors like on the App Store who pick, these are games of the week, games of the day, featured games. Check out this game that came out last month. Here's a list of interesting ones. They put on their YouTube channel interesting games that come out each month. Like,
that's cool.
They support it. Nintendo do, yeah. I get it in my sub box, like games of the month on Switch, and it says like, oh yeah, you're getting Absu, you're getting Nintendo 2, you're getting this, that, and the other, and it's like cool, like pointing out games that are indie games for you to buy, to say Nintendo like we endorse these. It's a cool thing that they're doing, curation, which is why Epic Games has now also suddenly come up with their own storefront, which is curated and is also, here's more money to the developers than the other storefronts. So that might be something to look into for the PC side of things. But
is it 85?
I think it's 70 something.
I thought that was Steam.
Steam was 60 something. I think might even be less than that.
I'm pretty sure on Epic is 80 plus.
But that would be great. And but then again, Steam has sale culture and has because the amount of sales that they make during sale periods, you know, that is a thing to consider. Anyway, these are storefront things rather than platform things, you know.
Yeah, well, if we've decided the hardware, then obviously, like, the digital platforms aren't as important.
Well, I can, because otherwise I'll be sitting here shilling for GOG still. Cause
obviously. I mean, this is something that we will need to discuss.
Yeah.
Possibly later as well when we've done a little bit more research in it. In the meantime, possibly getting like a hardware list for the Switch so we can start looking at it.
I guess just look at, because I watch Digital Foundry, I see what devs do to try and hit Switch, and like, you know, there's some interesting things to take into account. A lot of it is just making sure you're cutting down on CPU and RAM resources, and that's pretty much it.
That'll be a lot of conversations between you and us too.
Well, because we've already said as well, if the camera turns and it goes, offload everything behind you, bam, you've just saved a ton of memory.
I mean, a lot of it will be, it's good practice anyway to design an occlusion culling system.
Yeah,
I have experience doing it before anyway. Obviously, will be if we're moving to a different engine.
Well, because it would be more aggressive than occlusion culling. It would be like, because occlusion culling is generally for vertices and polygons, and to go further than that, but to go right, all logic behind this point is gone. Get rid of literally every single game object behind there. It's useless now, because like if we're doing a thing where you're moving linearly between these like areas,
just unload.
We don't need anything from back there, like nothing.
That's just a system of design. I think I'm not sure how LOD will work, especially if we're utilising quality over quantity of assets at the time. So if we're using pseudo-isometric view, for example, then everything in the scene we want to be loaded fully or not at all.
Yeah.
So possibly that will come in with the prototyping phase, where we'll see whether an LOD system is actually going to be useful or not.
Try to divide areas into zones, I guess, and just go, right, they're in this zone, we don't need any logic at all between these bits, and just occlusion culling for the stuff that isn't in view. But yeah, we'll, I guess, jump that hurdle when we come to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
nerd speak.
But yeah, so that obviously brings us to one of the final things I want to talk about, which is engines. I know we've had a discussion about this, but possibly we could see how this fits in with some other stuff already. Obviously, we've been prototyping, or you've been prototyping in Unity so far.
For efficiency reasons, because I know C#.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will the switch happen? Haha, you see what I did there?
Click. If only my click would clean. Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah. Will we have a switch to Unreal? That's the question.
Well, because my plan was still to learn C++.
If that's the plan, then I'm fine with that.
But yeah, because engines is more a case of what are we after. But these days, like, there are a lot of similarities between Unreal and Unity anyway.
Yeah.
It's just feature sets, and if we are doing a 3D thing, if that's still the plan, then we can go either or and probably be fine. But it's just a case of expanding our knowledge and technical, I guess, experience into stuff that's more widely used and gives us more possibilities of what we can do, I guess.
I think, as you say, we can make the game in either.
Yeah.
And I think it will be okay, because they are similar in a lot of aspects, many aspects.
Yeah.
And Unity is catching up to an extent on the front of like actual features. Having used Unity for several years and Unreal before that, and going back to Unreal now, I think Unreal is still better for this game.
Sure.
I think it's got more. It's more powerful.
Well, Unreal's Switch support as well. If we are aiming for Switch, they've been working actively with Nintendo. Smash 4 is built on Unreal Engine. That is a thing. They've been working hand in hand, because Fortnite was supposed to be a collaborative effort with Nintendo actively to go, can we get this running nicely on this thing? Which way it's a miracle that you have a game that's built for PS4 and Xbox One. That is, because it was the same with id Tech with Doom running on the Switch. That's a ridiculous miracle. That shouldn't be possible.
Wait, Doom? Why?
Because that game was built, like, that engine was built entirely without knowledge of the Switch existing, and like, they built it for the PS4 to run at 60 on the PS4 and on the Xbox One as well, but mostly for the PS4. And so all of the rendering behind it is designed around the specs of the PS4. And with Doom 2, Doom Eternal now, it's a new engine, and this new engine is being built with the Switch in mind. So it's it's a different thing. But point is, they pass it over to Panic Button, this studio which is now basically devoted solely to making Switch ports. And they're like, right, we can do nips and tucks here, and you have the same core experience. It runs at 30, but it's a miracle that it runs full stop on a handheld. This thin little thing is running a game built with the architecture of the PS4 in mind. It's crazy, because like, ports have happened throughout the years, and ports studios exist.
Have you personally experienced those like ported games?
I've watched footage
and
I've seen analyses, because Digital Foundry is a fantastic channel. This is my chance to shill for them, but they go in depth to every like visual change and stuff like that that's happened, and technical changes, and like, Panic Button is a talented studio, but point is, we don't need to worry about port studios and stuff, because Epic Games have been working with Nintendo to get Unreal working on the Switch nicely.
Okay, I mean, if you're sure. I mean, because the only thing I've experienced that's been a port, other than simple stuff like Night in the Woods,
Night in the
which I
Woods,
think
yeah.
was a PC thing.
Yeah.
I've played, obviously I play Fortnite as well on the
Yeah,
Switch as well as my
30.
PC, and it's not great. I mean,
It's way
people-
worse. I'll say way worse, way less good, because the system is way less powerful.
I mean,
That's
a bit
simple.
broken. Not just like things look bad and you can't see at certain distances.
Hmm.
Past a certain distance, characters don't move
Well, they
smoothly, so
yeah,
I can't really
they
choose
turn
to
down
use
the
a
animation
sniper.
frames.
I think
Yeah.
the thing is
But-
that Fortnite is not designed for the Switch.
No, it wasn't. It
And
was, yeah.
it probably shouldn't be on the Switch.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just a
characters
miracle that
teleport.
it is.
Yeah.
I know each time I land in a populated area, that's a mistake. People are teleporting right in front of you.
Because here's the thing, right? The Switch, this tiny little thing, it has a mobile CPU inside it, and when you're chucking 100 players in a game, like at once, that's CPU heavy as hell. Like, and especially when you're rendering a bunch of different animations at once, they're having to go through a pipeline that's designed for much higher bandwidth, CPU-wise, and to run on a handheld. It's crazy. Like that's a game designed for PC and PS4 and Xbox One, and now it's being more focused on the console end towards Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Like, you know, they're getting their own visual feature sets, like from the PC version. But like, yeah, the point is the fact that it runs at all on the Switch is crazy. Let alone at a mostly consistent 30, even if it does drop frames. And they were even adding touchscreen features and gyro controls they added to it. Same with the Doom and Wolfenstein 2 ports, they added gyro controls. And yeah, the point is it's getting support officially, like from Epic. Even though the game was not designed as a Switch game, it runs on the Switch, which is crazy.
But yes.
Yes.
So the console, you guys have been thinking about then. It sounds reasonable, by the way. So it's the Switch, is what you guys are thinking,
Something.
I think it would probably be the best decision.
and specifically for the purposes of it being portable, and obviously the breeding ground of like indie, like finding whatever. It's where you'd go to find like our type of game, the indie thing.
Yeah, it's the mindset. I
So
guess.
we don't actually, we're not actually. So we want people to leave their house with this.
Well, because there are chunks of Switch players who mostly play yours sits on a TV mostly.
I
play
very rarely
mine
bring it anywhere.
mostly handheld. Apart from Smash, because I want it on the big screen so I can see everything clearly. Even then, I was playing this handheld. Just kicked up on the dock earlier. But yeah, the vast majority of my Switch experience has been portable. The vast majority of yours has been plugged into the TV.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. I just
Yeah.
don't know what people choose to do with it, because I'm not that I have a particular thing I'm worried about in case they choose to leave it plugged in or have it mobile. But I just feel like I should maybe know, because if they leave it plugged in, they could use their Pro controller, which would leave you with more functionality
I think you've got
on the
to
controller.
assume. I think you've got to assume that the player is going to have it portable,
Yeah.
because that is, the initial way it's supposed to be used. Like, even if you're not taking it out somewhere, you can still sit in your house with it in your hands as a handheld thing playing. I think the only reason you really plug it in and get a controller out, or at least that was the only reason I did that, was because I preferred it on the big screen. And even then, I was using the controller that came with the system,
Yeah, same.
which was just sliding these in. So it's going to be the same. Imagine you're still using the Joy-Cons, regardless. If you're going to market it to people using the TV and having, people who have bought a different controller, I think that's a bad idea, because obviously you're not actually catering to the people who have bought a Switch. you're catering to a subcategory of those people,
And even then,
and that seems a bit, pointless.
the only upgrade you get from using in terms of not shooters, because shooters, of course, you get the extra movement on the analog stick for finer control. The only real difference between the Joy-Con and other controllers for the Switch is you get a proper D-pad on regular controls, whereas you have a divided one on the Joy-Con.
Yeah.
That is the one main difference, which is why platformers generally play better when you're not using the Joy-Con, because you can use the same with fighting games. But apart from that, I've got my 4 shoulder buttons, I've got my clicky sticks, they're both fully functional analog sticks. I've got my plus and minus, my face buttons, and my D-pad. And
But
that's
controllers, though,
everything.
Are they all analog? Yeah, I mean when it's plugged in, and you might have a controller.
Every single controller on the Switch has digital triggers, so that's not a feature set. But,
Okay.
Yeah,
So your one's clicky as well.
Yeah, they all are.
No, I don't mean the Joy-Cons. I mean when you plug in like another controller.
Yeah.
Like
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's digital.
okay, I just can't remember properly. So I'm asking.
That's the thing. Like the Switch does not have support for analog triggers. So that's something, because the only thing we'll have to bear in mind is if we're designing with the Switch in mind, triggers are digital, and that's it. Because then that can be ported over to other systems, full stop. Because their triggers can be treated.
I'm just wondering
I don't think that's
about.
an issue.
No, I was just wondering about precise movement in case a mechanic came up, which I think would go nicely with that. But yeah, I guess the sticks will have to be it.
Yeah, that's the
It's gonna be
closest
with
you're
the
going to get.
sticks. To be honest, I don't think the triggers would have been a good method of using a precise movement anyway.
I just mean it could have been a possible option. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
sure
it
why
could
they've
have
been used.
I think it could have been cool.
But I think because we've still got that precise movement, as long as it's programmable to have the sensitivity based on the analog rather than just an on and off, which I assume it is.
Yeah, that's how I was doing it.
I mean, it's just, to be honest, it probably is a better idea to leave it as the joystick. As the analog stick, because to be honest, it's intuitive. Everyone knows that analog stick is for precision movement, and you're not really meant to. And the trigger is like counterintuitive to the way things have, like, I guess, developed to have a universal sort of way to play across every game. So, I don't know.
No, I was just going to say there's also the consideration, if we're considering it as a handheld, you do have a touch screen. And I don't know whether or not we'd want to include that as something.
yes.
Because that's the
But
thing
I
with other
think-
platforms as well.
Yeah, this is the thing. If we were set on the Switch and not necessarily other platforms, then sure, that could be a cool thing to integrate. But of course, if we want diversity, then it's something to sort of go, okay, although it would be nice, maybe steer away from it.
I mean,
And even then, within the Switch itself, there are games where we have touchscreen support, but then as soon as you put it into TV, it's like,
yeah,
wiggle your
exactly.
Joy-Con
This is the
around.
thing. It limits what you can do.
I really
in some
like
senses.
the idea of
Or the touchscreen.
the touch screen.
Is this for James's idea of doing the thing?
Possibly, yeah. I was wondering, can I do something with that? Because I had already spoken about the strokes idea, and then James came up with that really nice idea, which is cool. But I feel like we should always be reaching out as far as we can, like consumer-wise,
Well,
and that shouldn't
yeah.
really maybe use.
I think if we design a game, the minimum viable product without it,
that'd be nice.
and then
Yeah.
if we're like, hey, actually, you know what, we've got this game that works, but we could do with some extra stuff. We've got a touchscreen we can work with. That's when we start adding some stuff in for that. So maybe if you work on some designs now for it, and then we say that actually we're not going to use it as a crucial part of our gameplay unless we feel
But
like
it's something
gonna...
we've considered.
Yeah.
Because
I agree, I think
Yeah.
it could work, but also like we need, as you say, we need to consider the larger audience.
I mean,
don't
if
know.
you really want to maybe stay true to the product and go along with what we said about, it's not about the age of the audience, it's about the people who connect with it, and then we feel like this is what's best for the game. We can be like, it's not for you, it's for the ones who can do it.
I think with touchscreens, I've always hated doing swipey gestures on touchscreens.
I'm not saying swipey gestures, but I did mean swipey gestures.
I like it on my phone when I'm going menus, I'm going duh, 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 duh. But when it's a consistent like that, I don't like the feeling of smearing my finger on my screen. I like
see,
tapping.
yeah.
I'm fine with tapping.
Yeah,
I don't
if you're like pinging things, I think maybe.
But like with James's idea, when he was saying it, I was
sort of going up and down the screen and wiggling your finger along.
When he was saying that it checks like at certain points of it, how like whether you're on a threshold. The big thing that I was thinking of was Wind Waker, which they did without a touch screen. It just went at fixed intervals, like when the thing goes back and forth, when it hits the middle, where's your analog stick? Is it up, down, left or right? And then when it goes past, it goes bam, you're at right, and then it goes back, you're at left, and it goes which notes you're inputting at these fixed intervals.
I need to see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I could show you.
It's okay.
I'll do it
We can
after.
look at it later.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have that much time until you need to go.
Sure. But yeah, it's just because also with specifically with the Switch, the touchscreen also isn't that big, like for a because you compare it to an iPad. Think of how many games are designed with their puzzles with iPads in mind rather than iPhones. As soon as you try it on an iPhone, you're like, like I'd say this as if I play a bunch of mobile games. They're not generally my thing, but like that is absolutely the thing. I remember going into Stormfront in Maidstone, this kind of Apple-esque shop, and trying out puzzle games on the iPads when the iPad was like getting newer models, and I was like, this is cool, try this out, I guess. I was like, this game is clearly made with the iPad in mind, and because it's bigger play space. But on the Switch, I don't think I've really gone on games, like, apart from on the menus when I've gone, this menu should be a touch menu. When Fortnite first hit and it didn't have touchscreen support, I was like, where's the touchscreen support? Because it would be way quicker to go through those menus just by tapping on them. Like, things feel better when you've got haptic feedback. Like when I'm pressing in a button, I can feel the button going in, I feel the analog stick, I feel the resistance on the analog stick. Against just smearing my finger and having to wipe off the fingerprint afterwards.
Yeah, I guess it.
But that's me, that's not the general populace.
I know, I'm not a huge fan of it, so I wouldn't want to feel forced to use it.
Sure.
But if it was something that maybe could be done like that, then that would be a way that I'd be like, okay, I'm good with that. Like, to play it, If it was just another way to be like, this is another way I can poke things and, I don't know, they'll play music back at me or something. Or, like, another way that I can, like, sync in with somebody. But
so it's not like a necessary thing, but it's an alternative way of interacting.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, if I'm in a comfortable position and I'm playing with my hands on the controller, and then they're like, to progress, you need to move your hand and do something like this that is completely different to the rest of the flow of the game. Like, oh man,
Zelda,
why?
when you're got to do the gyro puzzle, and I'm like, okay, I've got to put my Switch down, pull off the Joy-Con, and then use the thing, because I can't just tilt it, because I play Zelda handheld. Yeah. So I can't be tilting the thing and looking up and down at my screen. I've got to pull the Joy-Con off and then do that.
I've got the opposite issue.
Your controller doesn't
I have to just go, okay, guess I'm putting this controller down, picking up the whole thing, and then going,
resync the controllers.
A lot of the time I just take the controllers off, attach it to the, the
Joy-Con grip.
Yeah. And then sort of do the whole dumb.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
It's a bit of a faff.
Wait, what? You experience it in a different way?
I played, because I play Zelda mostly in handheld mode, just like this, and then as soon as they're like, do a tilt puzzle, I'm not going to be like that with my entire Switch. I need to go. Good point, actually. I didn't think of that. No, I have to like put it down, go bonk, bonk, and then it only picks up the gyro from the right one, so I can just go.
Okay, that's a thing.
Like that. Or I can get my Joy-Con grip and play like that. But,
Well, so that would be where I stand with it. But
bless you.
I forgot I had gyro, so that's another possible mechanic.
But is it
something you really want to do?
Problematic. Like I said, a lot of controllers that you get don't actually support gyro.
this could work with my...
No,
No.
don't say this
Stop
like you had a eureka moment.
I don't want to hear it.
We're not
I'm writing
having
it
like
down.
you can't
Get out.
communicate with people because your controller doesn't support gyro.
Your Joy-Cons are
Like,
broken,
it could-
so you
yeah,
bought a
it could work.
controller
You've actually got to
and
have
you
3
can't
switches.
play.
I just...
It actually bricks your Switch. You have to buy a new Switch. But no, because I like gyro, but I don't think gyro should be a thing we should be targeting as like a main mechanic.
I can
Yeah.
explain it.
Go on.
Is this going to take 20
Actually,
minutes?
yeah, no.
It's gonna take
We-
20 seconds.
Okay.
If you guys
Okay.
got...
You've got 20 seconds.
I was going to say, I'm giving you a time.
Don't give me a timer. If you guys can remember the idea I said, just people already are in. I don't like that you're holding your phone. I see the timer in my head.
No, just go.
I was just saying that people are already like people. I mean, music is a passive medium, and people already attempt to interact with it anyway by going along with the beat or by swaying or whatever. Oh shit, my key is coming out.
Right, that can be so.
Yeah.
And
Anyway,
do you want to do this via gyro?
So are you suggesting that you sort of sway along with
no,
the thing
no.
with you?
But what I mean is, it's
Okay.
already intuitive to like tap or.
I'm not smashing my controller.
I'm not saying smash. That was a bad example. But like, you can go along with the beat of a thing already, just by swinging
It's
it.
such a gimmick.
I would agree if you were playing the drums. That'd be kind of cool if you could
Well,
do that.
because I'm getting Vietnam flashbacks to Wii Music.
Oh no!
And also,
Never mind.
But this is
Rayman
more
Raving
accurate.
Rabbids, they had this rhythm game, and each time you went like that, the rabbit would go bah, or like blah, like that. So then you'd be playing a song by going like, I think "Toxic" by Britney Spears was one of them, or whatever.
Of
Just going-
course.
But yeah, anyway.
I mean, I don't know if it's like if it's. I don't know. I think it's a good idea to have just arbitrary movement that feels correct for the music.
No, because
No.
different people interpret that differently. Like
yeah, that is a problem.
Ella will like do that to music
Do an
all the
awkward
time.
sway.
I don't, because I don't really do that unless I'm watching Twin Peaks and you need to do that. But like, I will like stop pulling about my foot like
I think
that.
if you
know,
physically force somebody
Attach
to
it
to your
move in a
foot.
certain way to music, you're going to really piss
Yeah.
people off.
different people react to
Yeah.
music very differently. And
Okay.
even like head bobbing, different people go either forwards or just up and down.
Especially
Forwards.
if we're designing
Yeah,
for
people do that.
if we're designing for a Switch platform
That's really
where people are going to
creepy.
be using it on the go and mobile, you don't want somebody guy on the tube going like,
brings out his Donkey Kongo bongos.
yeah, like
I just meant that it would be a good way to go along to further the like just the completely no controls idea. Just go along with the music. Maybe it can just be a timing thing. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think controls are important for interaction, but I don't know.
Sure. I'll write it down briefly. I think I agree with you guys that people don't react to music in the same way,
Yeah.
so they'll express.
I'm not entirely
Differently.
against it though. I think it's a cool idea. I don't know how we could make it universal, and I don't know how easy it would be to have a minimum viable project. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And also coding this nonsense. would
Yeah, that's what I,
I think-
mean.
I think,
as in,
as I say-
it would require a lot of extra work,
Yeah.
and I don't know necessarily if that's going to be possible within the time constraints.
As I say, let's build an MVP first,
So it would be cool.
and that is just a working thing on a platform. You know, that we worked on the constraints of the system. We know it works. We know it feels good and functional, and then we can play with the like. I'm not trying to be offensive, but with the gimmicks after.
It's not a gimmick.
It is a gimmick.
I'm just going to
It's
say
not.
now, I
It
think
feels-
I'd be strangely happy to see a guy on the train just going like,
Yeah.
You're
you
playing
can
our
know what
game.
he's saying! Exactly!
I'm like, which cool guy invented this game, eh?
It's
Not a
just start
gimmick. It goes
staring at them and
along
go,
with like the feeling, the music thing. How much?
Why did you make it look like you go like eye to eye in front of them? It's
yeah,
like,
because you want to make
I'm
it
gonna grab
uncomfortable.
my charging cable.
It's fine. I think we should probably clear up here,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'll
Did we
finish with a
cover
recap.
everything?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
So we started with audience, which we decided that we'd be roughly aiming at 14 to 19-year-olds based on the research originally, but also we're going to be looking at kind of handing over our experience to anyone. So we're going to work on a game and a marketing strategy, if we choose to, that would be not exclusive. So we want to introduce this concept to as many people as we can. In regards to platform, we've decided to primarily work on the Switch. Thanks.
Sorry.
Um,
Into your mic.
due to both the markets on there, the players that have it, and just generally the console feeling like it's a good place for our sort of game to be on when we're not looking at any sort of competitive elements or that kind of feel. With a potential for something like PS4 and PC later on. In regards to hardware constraints, obviously we're going to have to consider for mobile hardware primarily, because obviously stuff like CPU power is going to be a thing. In regards to interfacing and controller issues, we're going to obviously be primarily limited to the Joy-Cons as an interfacing method. In regards to the engine, we will be primarily looking at Unreal Engine 4 for the actual development of the project. So yeah, that is wrapping up everything we've discussed today. Is there any other comments other than my Teletubbies that are currently wiggling around the room?
Teletubbies.
Yeah.
Do
Cheers.
they do that?
You're welcome. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, no, that's it.
Right, that's great.
Watch movies.
John,
End it.
sink us away.
End it.
Sure, yeah. 3, 2, 1.